A German submarine is sinking in the Mediterranean, and inside it are codebooks that could break the cipher blinding Allied convoys. 3 men from a British destroyer jump into the black water and swim toward the conning tower without orders, knowing they may not come back. In late October 1942, the eastern Mediterranean was under pressure from Axis submarines. U-boats were pushing toward the convoy lanes that supplied the 8th Army in North Africa. The Royal Navy kept a group of destroyers on patrol: Petard, Pakenham, Dulverton, and Hero, supported by Wellington aircraft. The target was U-559, a Type 7 sea boat operating in these waters. She had an experienced crew, and the confidence that came from knowing the Allies had lost access to a critical intelligence source. Since February 1942, the German Navy had been using a 4-rotor Enigma key called Shark for its U-boat communications. Bletchley Park had not been able to break it. For 10 months, convoy routing had been effectively blind to Wolfpack positions, and losses in the Atlantic were climbing. The key to breaking Shark was not the machine itself, but the short signal codebooks that U-boats carried. 2 books mattered most, and both were small enough to fit in a pocket. The Wetterkurzschlüssel compressed weather reports into short coded transmissions. The Kurzsignal Heft did the same for position reports. With those books, the codebreakers at Bletchley Park could find the patterns they needed to crack the daily settings. Without them, Shark stayed shut. London had made it clear to naval commanders that capturing these materials was as important as sinking the submarine. Every destroyer captain in the Mediterranean had been briefed on what to look for. The problem was that U-boat crews were trained to destroy exactly these documents. Standing orders required scuttling charges, open sea valves, and the dumping of signal materials in weighted bags. Any boarding attempt was a race against flooding and demolition. The boat could simply drop out from under the boarding party without warning. Petard's group found U-559 on sonar and began a hunt that lasted 16 hours. The destroyers boxed the contact, rotated depth charge runs, and kept the submarine pinned below the surface. The tactic was straightforward. Keep her down until the air went foul and the batteries drained. Then force her to surface where guns and searchlights would be waiting. Through the afternoon and into the night, the pattern continued. Charges down, wait, listen, adjust. Charges down again. The sea rose as the hours passed, and each depth charge run had to account for the ship's roll. On Petard's mess decks, men took in tea between turns and said little. When U-559 finally broke the surface, it was dark. She came up at a steep angle, bow first, then settled as water poured from her casing. German sailors began climbing out of the conning tower and dropping into the water, some with life vests and some without. The boat was already taking on water through open valves, and her hull was damaged from hours of depth charging. She would not stay afloat long. Petard closed in and lit the submarine with her searchlight. The U-boat sat low in the water, listing slightly, with oil spreading around her hull. The captain ordered a boarding party, but there was no time for a proper boat launch. The codebooks were sinking with the submarine, and every second mattered. 3 men made the decision at the rail: Lieutenant Anthony Fasson and able seaman Colin Grazier stripped to their shorts and went over the side. Tommy Brown, the 16-year-old NAFI canteen assistant who had lied about his age to join the ship, went with them. No one ordered Brown to go. He went on his own. They swam to the U-boat's hull through water slick with diesel fuel and climbed onto the casing. The conning tower hatch was open and completely dark inside. The German crew had abandoned the boat, and no demolition charges had gone off. Fasson went down first, Grazier followed. The control room was already flooding. water at the deck plates and rising against the bulkheads. Brown stayed at the top of the conning tower. His job was to relay whatever Fasson and Grazier passed up from below. He planted his bare feet on the wet steel, crouched by the hatch, and reached down. Inside the hull, Fasson and Grazier moved fast and by feel. The radio shack was small, and the chart table was within reach. They found the Wetterkurzschlüssel first, and pushed it up through the hatch into Brown's hands. He clamped it against the tower and held on. Then the cord signal heft came up, wet, heavy, and critical. Brown pinned it to his chest with both arms. Below, the water was rising. Fasson called for more time and turned toward a final locker. Grazier helped haul open a drawer that stuck. They were working in a space that was filling around them, and they knew it. Then U-559 lost buoyancy. The angle changed suddenly, and the bow dropped. Brown shouted a warning and threw himself clear of the tower as it went under. The sea closed over the conning tower in a rush of air and foam, and the submarine dropped away. Brown broke the surface with the codebooks. His breathing was ragged and his grip was failing, but he held on. Rescue lines hit the water close to him, and Petard's boat pulled him in with the documents pressed against his chest. He was shaking and barely able to speak, but the books were intact. Fasson and Grazier did not come up. They were still inside the boat when it went down. There was no recovery possible. Back aboard Petard, Brown was wrapped in blankets and taken below. The books were separated, dried carefully, and bagged for transport. The ship's yeoman logged the seizure, and the captain signaled the group that the materials were secure. Survivors from U-559 were collected from the water and taken under guard. The codebooks reached Bletchley Park through courier channels in early November 1942. Hut 8, the section responsible for naval Enigma, used the captured short signal materials to find the cribs they needed. By December 1942, they broke back into shark traffic, ending 10 months of blackout. Convoy routing improved almost immediately. Ships that would have sailed blind into wolf-pack positions were rerouted around them. Losses in the Atlantic began to fall. The supply lines that fed Britain and the buildup for the invasion of Europe stayed open. Brown returned to duty on Petard and served out the rest of his commission. No one outside the ship knew what he had done. Fasson and Grazier were each awarded the George Cross, the highest civilian decoration for gallantry. Brown received the George Medal. He never told his family the full story of what had happened that night. He was killed in 1945 at the age of 18. He died trying to rescue his younger sister from a house fire in South Shields. The capture of U-559's codebooks did not win the Battle of the Atlantic by itself, but it removed the obstacle that had kept Bletchley Park locked out of U-boat communications for nearly a year. The convoys that survived because of better routing in the winter of 1942 carried supplies that kept the war effort moving. 2 men died inside a sinking submarine to pass up wet paper. A teenager held onto it in the dark. That paper changed the course of the Atlantic War. If you like real stories from the Second World War, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The next one is coming.